बोलेगी, वो बोलेगी फिर। हेलो एवरीवन, वी हैव टू डिस्कस अबाउट दैट एंड इंटरव्यू क्वेश्चंस देख लेते हैं। एंड क्वेश्चन नंबर 12, the discovery of the lithium and the reserve in India's and the could have the significant implications and for the countries and energy security and the economic growth, and there are what are the geopolitical and the implications of India's and becoming the major production of the lithium examination and approach. Candidate can start the answer. इधर देख लो, तुम इधर देख लो। Answer with basic ideas of the lithium and then the highlighted the significance of the lithium reserve and in the India, and also they try to examine the geopolitical implications. कौन है ये जो मौलिक तुम्हें कौन है?
वो देख गाड़ी
अच्छा गई।
वो देख गाड़ी रुको तू आया दीदी देख आया दीदी झूठ आया हट तो नहीं दे रही।
बाय कर लो, बाय। अच्छी आ गई
दीदी जा
बेटा रहे कछु बिछा के बैठा दो। पुट्टू जब कौन है इधर? अनुष्का शेट्टी है। अनुष्का शेट्टी, सुनील शेट्टी की।
तू क्या कर रहा है?
Introduction. Recently the lithium resources and where the found in the Jammu and the Kashmir and by the Geological Survey. Surveys of the India's and the lithium is considered as the crucial component for the production of the rechargeables and the batteries, and which are the used in other variety of the electronics and the devices including the smartphones and laptop and electrical vehicles body. हाँ तू खेलेगी? देख का उठा दिया। और भैया का उठा रही मैं बोट हुआ ना बुंदू ना उठा ले। Body implications and for the countries and energy and the security and the economic growth and imports and the need of the self-sufficient, and India is seeking to secure it's the critically miners and supply and the build and self the sufficiencies and in this the sector and the lithium and the served and in the Jammu and Kashmir and could boost the domestic and the batteries manufacturing industry expansions and of the electrical vehicles and the Jammu and Kashmir and reserve, and will also the help advance the Indians and the government and MBTS and plans of the 30% EV and the penetrations and in the private cars and the 70% of the commercial vehicles and 80% and 4 2 and the 3 vehicles and by 2030 for the automobiles industry and development of other domestic and the manufacturing ecosystem for EVs and the batteries, and which can the further and contribute to the country's economic growth and the unemployment, and it also the reduced import and the boost and unemployment and opportunities and the country and the recent the country currently import and all of its and the lithiums and need, and India was the heavily dependent on the Hong Kong and the China and for its the lithium requirement, energy and the security. Energy security and the recording to the central and the electricity and the authority the countries, and will need the 27 GB and of the grid and the scales of the energy and storage the system, and by the 2013 and this will the required and the large amount of the lithium and ऐसे ही खिला लो, ऐसे दूर से गई से economic as various the government and schemes and likes the PLI are the focusing on the electronic and the semiconductor availability of the lithium and resources can help in the establishing and to end the supply chains and the energy transitions, the sources of the transitions and from the combustion and vehicles to and the electrical and the vehicle dependent on the battery and which account for the list and 30% of the vehicles cost and India dependent and for thus the critical मत कर रख दो thus critical resources and has the results and six the fold in the last 5 years and as it's the rise and to be the electronic and the solar manufacturing hub and the geopoliticals and the implications union territories of the Jammu and Kashmir and the previously other state and has been the side of the historical cross borders border tension and between the India's and the Pakistan domestic आराम से insurgency and the terrorism आराम से domestic insurgencies and the terrorism and so this आराम से लग जाएगा क्या ऐसे नहीं चुपचाप से so this new the discovery has the geostrategic implications and the in considering the geopolitical sensitive and of its the wider location the world supply of the lithium is the under and the strains and due to the conversations of the world resources इते बिठा दे सही से
मैं गाड़ी में डाल
So this discovery has the geostrategic implications and the consider the geopolitical sensitivity of its the wider location and the world supply of the lithium and is under the strain and due to the concentration of the resource अरे आराम से ऐसे नहीं आराम से बिल्कुल ऐसे कर मोह नहीं पकड़ ऐसे पकड़ू कर ऐसे बस अपन geopolitical sensitivity खेल रहा हो तो its wider location and the world supply वो तो मत ले जा the world supply of the lithium cell is under the strain आराम से दूर से ये टाइम से खेला strain due to the concerted and of the ऐसे नहीं आराम से resources and other few locations and with the 54 of the world and the lithium खेल रहा वो खेलन दे अंदर जा रहा वो खेल रहा अरे रो तो ऐसे देख चुम्मा ले ले ऐसे मत कर चुम्मा ले ले देख चुम्मा ले ले चलो मेरे को चुम्मा ले लेंगी चुम्मी ओले भैया ओले गाड़ी आजा अब दे आराम से ऐसे नहीं
कैसे काटा गुड़ बड़ा
ऐसे करके आराम से बिल्कुल आराम से ऐसे ही if the perceived and the size of the minerals and reservations and in the basmat bol reserve in Jammu and Kashmir and is the born and out by the furthers and the exploitation India and could the jump ahead of the China's bees and its the lee and stockpiles conclusion however there are the also and the some challenges like the investment and the exploitation क्या हो गया खड़े हो There are also some the challenges and like the investment and the exploitation and the extraction for the processing of the lithium as well as the insurance and the strength अरे मत कर इतनी जोर से मत पकड़ो ensuring sustainable meaning the practices and the minimizing environment environmental impacts and of the lithiums and the minings additionally and there is also other need for the There is also other need and for the developing in the robust and the regulatory frameworks and to the manage and the govern and for the extractions and use of the lithium reserve. Question number 13. How do the tectonics and the tectonic process and the geologicals and features of the easterns and the Mediterranean regions and the contributed into the occurrences of the earthquake and related hazard? Explain. Approach. A simple, straight and forward questions and where the conditions candidates need to the right and about and knew the tectonic and the geological features of the eastern Mediterranean region contributed to the occurrences and of the earthquakes and the related hazard in the region's introduction. The tectonic process in the eastern and the Mediterranean regions and are the complex and the includes and the interactions. The interaction and the between interaction between the several and the major tectonic plates and including the Africans and Eurasians and the Arabian plates. The region is the characterized and by the numerous and the active fault and including the both and the street slips and fold and the subductions and zone which can lead to the earthquakes and the related and hazard body. Eastern Mediterranean regions and is the located at the intersections of the Africans and the Eurasians and the Arabian plate and making it is the highly active and the tectonic zones. The complex interactions between the thus plates and result in the significant geological feature and such as the mountain range, basin and the fault and contribute unto the occurrences of the earthquakes and the related hazard. One of the major features of the Eastern Mediterranean and region is the and Hellenics and Arts and which is the series of the subductions and zones and located and between the Aegean Sea and the Eastern Mediterranean. And the subduction zone on occurs and when one the tectonic plate is forced and the beneath and another which can the result in the large and the earthquakes and the tsunamis and the Hellenics and the arc is one of the most active and the subduction zones in the world and is the responsible and for the numerous earthquakes and the associated and hazards such as the landslide and tsunamis. Tsunamics and the volcanic eruption and the regions and is also and the characterized by the several major and the transforms and fold the including the north and the Anatolians and the fault and the Death Sea and transform which are the responsible for the some of the largest and the earthquakes and in the regions. Thus fault are the associated and with the tectonics and the movement of the Arabian plates and the against and the Eurasia plates and which the occurs and the strength and the tensions and to build up in the earth crust. When this stress is released and it can the result in the large and earthquakes and that can the occur and sufficient damage and loss of the lives. In the addition to the tectonics and process the geological features of the Eastern Mediterranean and region can also the contributed to the occurrence of the earthquakes and the related and hazard. The region is the home enter the numerous and the active volcanoes and such as the Mount Etna in Italy and Mount Olympus in the Greece and which can the produce and the seismic the activities and the trigger landslide and the other hazard and the regions. Hazard the others hazard and the regions. Thus hazard can be the both and the geological atmospherics in the naturals and can the cause and the significant damage and the loss of the life and some of the most and the significant hazard in the regions and includes and landslide and the steep and topography of the region, and as well as the presence and of the active fault and the seismic activities can contribute and to the occurrence of the landslide, and thus the landslide and can be the triggered and by the earthquakes, heavy rainfall or the others and factor, and can the result in the significant damage in the additions in the earthquakes. The eastern and the Mediterranean and region is also the prone and to other variety of the others and the natural hazard, and including the showers and storms, and the regions can experience and savor the storm and the including the tropical storm and the hurricanes, and which can the causes and the significant damage to the coastal areas and the infrastructures and flooding heavy the rainfall. Hey, can cause the flush and the floodings, and which can the particularly and dangerous in areas and which the steep and the topography and the narrows valley and coastal the floodings can also the occurs during the storm and the hurricanes. Drought the reason is the susceptible and to the drones, and which can the causes water storage in the region. Conclusion: the complex tectonic the process and the geological and features of the eastern Mediterranean region and contributed to the significant and to the occurrence of the earthquakes and the related hazard the regions and is the highly active and the prone and to the seismic and activities which can the result in the significant damage and the loss of the life, and it is therefore essential for the region to be the well prepared and for the earthquakes and the related hazard through the effective and risk management and the disaster planning. Question number 14. What are the key strengths and the weaknesses and of the India's defense and the manufacturing industries, and what measures and can be the taken and to the leverages and its the potential as other global players in this the sectors, and discuss approach. Candidate can start the answer and with the basic idea of the indigenous of the defense and sectors and the discuss strength and be snakes of the emerging and the Indian and defense sectors and introductions. The defense sector in India is the identified as and the important areas and which and the oceans and of the opportunities for the self-reliance and with the large scale modernization and the requirement of the Indians and the armed forces and India visions and for the Atmas and the Nirbhar Bharat, and has provided the further impetus and to release the goals of indigenizations and of the defense sectors and body. The India, the defense and the manufacturing and industries, and has made the significant strides in recent year, and with the country now ranking and as the world and the third largest and the defeats an importer. However, the industries and still and faces the some and the significant challenges and that need to be the addressed and the strength. Large domestic market, in India has other large domestic market for the defense equipment and which the provided other stables and source of the defense and for the defense and the manufacturers. Skill and the workforce, and India has a large pool of the skills and the engineers and the technicals and which can be the leverages and to the developed high the qualities defense production and growing the private sectors participation. In India, the defense and industries has been the growing and the participation from the private sectors, and which has the help to bring other new and the ideas and the innovations. Strong research and the development and capabilities. India has the several public and the private research and development institutions and which can the help and to the development cutting the and the defenses technologies. Favorable policies environment. Favorable policy environments, and India's the government has taken the several steps to the promote the growth and of the defense and manufacturing industries, including the introduction of the defense and productions policy and the make in the India's initiative and weakness over the reliances on the impact and despite the effects so, to promote the domestic and the manufacturing. इतना बैठ था यहाँ पे पढ़ रही थी India and the steeps and the reliefs and heavily and on the imports for its the defense and needs and which and the hampers and the growth of the domestic defense and the industries, and for the instance and the amid the Russia and the Ukraine war and the India's is awaiting and the deliveries of the S-400 and the air defense and the systems and under other deal signed in 2018 in additions. In addition, and the several new the deals and are in the line and the including the 12 and the Sukhoi and 30 MKI and the aircraft and the 21 MiG and 29 fighter and jets for the Indian Air Force and the narrow private participation and private sector and the participations in the defense sector is constructed and by the lack of the conductive financial frameworks. That means our the difference and the production is in the enables and to the benefits and from the modern design and the innovation and the production development lack of the criticals and technologies lack of the design and the capabilities in inadequates and the R&D and the investment and the inability and to the manufacturers and measure the subsystem and the component hamper indigenous and the manufacturing. Also the relationship and between the R&D and the institution and the production agencies and the public or private and end user is the extremely and the fragile and limited and innovation in India. The defense industries has the traditionalities and focus on the manufacturing and the assemblies and rather than the innovations and which has the limited and the development of the cutting edge and the technologies and inadequate and infrastructures. India defense and the industry and face the significant and the infrastructures and the challenges and such as the a lack of the modern testing and the certifications and of the facility and the bureaucratics and headless and India defense and the procurements and process and can be the slow and the bureaucratics and which can the debtors and foreigners and the domestic investors and limitation collaboration between the public and the private sector. India public and the private defense and the sectors and have the limited and collaboration and which can the lead into the duplications of the efforts and the inefficiencies and lack of the nexus and between the stake and holders and India's the defense and manufacturing capabilities is the hindered and by the overlappings and the jurisdictions and between the Ministry of the Defense and the Ministry of the Industrials. Promotion conclusion. Indigenous India and the defense and the sector would further and the strengthened and the economic by the generating the unemployment opportunity and the saving the the checkers and by the reducing and the important and burdens and also the sufficiency in defense and build the frame fundamentally lead to the Indian strategic independence.
तेल भी चाहिए पूरा राशन पानी चाहिए
ले जा मोय दे
दे बड़ी हो दे दो कुछ हम तो सुबह का दे क्या बात में रखन भाई साहब ले तो नहीं चलो खाना खाइए और क्या चाहिए और दो चाहिए हर कल में मेहमान आ रहे हैं दो चाहिए रुक जा दो चाहिए जरा का जरा थिएटर ला रहे हैं को जाए अच्छा हम बाइक ला रहे हैं हां दे दे पहले दे दूंगा जरा भाई जरा चा जोड़ जोड़ काय रे दो 5-5 किलो अब रोज मेरे भाई के कारण निकाल निकालवा निकाल How can the G20 and the foster greater and the inclusively and the responsiveness and to the need of the emerging economics and the vulnerable population and what roles and can India play in the shaping and the more equitable and the sustainable global orders analysis and approach. Candidate can start the answer and with the basic ideas of the G20 and also the highlight the how and G20 bringing the insolvencies inclusivity and how can an India's and with the G20 and can work for equitable and the sustainable world introductions. G20 group of the 20 is in the international forum and the considering of the 19 countries and the European Union and EU and the G20 and is made and up of the world and the leading economics representatives about 2/3 of the globals and the population and more than the 80% of the world GDPs and body. The G20 has the potentials and to the foster greater and the inclusively and the responsibilities and to the need of the emerging economics and the vulnerable population by the talking the several research and some of the key
some of the keys based and there the G20 and can the promote the inclusively and are the prioritizing the need of the emerging agencies and the G20. The G20 and must the acknowledge and the unique challenges and faced by the emerging and economics and the take steps and to the address and them. And this could and the involve and the prioritizing and the infrastructure development providing access to the financing and the promoting inclusive economic growth and address the ego concern and of the vulnerables and population of the G20 and must and take into the amount and the needs of the vulnerables and populations such as the women and child and the marginalization communities. This could involve the promotings and the policies and that the fosters that the foster and the marginalized. ले चले हो जा पे खान का वहाँ पर रख देते. Addressing the concern of the vulnerable population and the G20 must and take and the amount account the need of the vulnerable and the population such as the women and children and the marginalized and the communities. This could the involve and the promoting policies and that the foster inclusive growth and the reduce and the inequality, increase the transparency and the accountability. The G20 and should increase the transparency and the accountability in the decisions making process, ensuring and that all the members and the countries have a say in and the shapings and global policies. And here's are the some and ways that the India and contributed and to other more and the equitable and the sustainable global order champions and the need of the emerging economics. India can use its the positions and in the G20 and to the advocated and for the need of the emerging economics and especially those in the south and areas and Southeast Asias and the Africas. Promote inclusively economic growth and India can the push and for the policies and that the foster inclusively economic growth and the reduce the inequalities and such as the investment in the social infrastructure and healthcare. Advocate for the climate changes and the mitigations and adoptions. And India can the promotes and policies that the address and climate changes and the promotes and the sustainable development as other countries and that is the one reverse and to be the impact of the climate changes. And India can play the key roles in the shapings and global climate policies, strengthen transparencies and the accountabilities. And India can the push and for the greater transparency and accountability in the decision making processes aid the G20 and ensuring and that all the members and countries and have and the equals she in shaping global and policies and promote the technologies transfers. And India is the how and to the thrivings and technologies industries and have other wealth of the experience in the developing innovations solution to some of the world and the most pressing problems. And India can the promotes and the transfer of the technology to the others and G20 members especially and thus those in developing and the emerging the economies and to help them to grow and the develop sustainability. And conclusion, India can contribute to this the goal and by the championing and the need of the development and the emerging and the economies and promoting the inclusions and growth, the advocating for the climates and changes, the mitigations and the adaptation and strengthening transparency and the accountability and the promoting technologies and transfer by the workings and together with others the G20 members. And India can help to the world other more equitable and the sustainable world for all. Question number 16. Short selling and has been other controversial practices and in the stock and the market. And how does and the short sellings and impact and the value of other currencies and what are the possibles and implications of the short sellings and for other countries and economics and explain with the help of the suitable example approach. a simple strength word and the questions and where's the candidate and need to the right and about the how does the short sellings and the impact the value and of the currency and what the are the possibles and the implication of the short sellings and for the country's economic and give the some example introduction. Short selling is the strategy used in the finance market and where and the investors and borrow the shares of the stock or the other securities and the immediately and sells and them on the open market and with the intentions and of the buying and them back. Letters 8 other lowers price and the returning borrowing the shares and to the lenders and body. Short sellings and is a Short selling is other trending and the strategy and where and the investors and borrow other securities such as other currencies and the sales it and with the expectations and of the buying and it the bake and it other lower price to make other profit and short sellings of the currency and can put downwards and pressures and on its the values and as the increase and supply of that the currency in the market may lower the damage and it's the exchange rate. This can make it the most and the expensive and to buy and that the currency and which can have the negatives and the consequences and for the business and the individuals and who release and on the that and the currencies and for the trade on the investment and the purposes and short the selling can the also the increase the volatility in the currency market as it's the introduce and the additionals and the uncertainty and about the futures and the direction of the currency value. However, the impact of the short selling on the currency and value is the influences by the variety of the factors and including the market sentiment, economic fundamentals and the action of the others market and participant and government and the central bank and may also the intervene in the currency and the market to the contracted and the effect of the short sellings and which can the limit its the impact on the currency value. The overall the while short and sellings and can have and the impact and on the value of the either currency and it is either just and one of the many factors that can the influences an exchange rate and its the effects and are not the always straightforward or the predictables implications and of the short sellings on the countries and currency and give me a 10 sentence. Short selling. Short sellings and can put down short sellings of other countries and the currencies and can have the sufficient implication for its the economic and the financial stabilities and short sellings and can put the downwards and the pressures and on the value of the currency and which can the lead and to the higher implementation and the decrease purchasing and powers and for the consumers and the business and either weekend and currency can also make it more the expensive and for the countries and to the impact good and the services and which can the negatively and impact the balance of the trade and the overall health of the economic and the short selling can also the increase volatilities and in the currency and market and which can the create uncertainty and the and instability and for the investor and the business in extremes cases the short sellings and can the triggers and the position cycle where other weakening currencies and lead to the more and the short sellings and further the depressing the currency values and government and the central bank and may the enter when in the currency market to the contracted and the effects of short selling and which can the involve using their resources and to buy the currency and the support and it is the value and however the such the interventions and may not always be the effective and can the themselves and have the unintended and consequences overall the short sellings and of the countries and currency and can have the far and the reachings and implications and for it is the economic and the financial systems and is the closely and the monitored and by the policy makers and investors and the alike and some example of the short selling in the recent past. GameStop in the early 2021 are the group of the individuals and investor organization on the social medias and platforms and the like radios related to the drive and up the stocks and the prices of the strugglings and video games and the retailers and the GameStop stop while the simultaneously and the short requirings short and the squeezings and the hedge and fund and that had bet against and the company stock and the Tesla in 2020. In 2020, the several the profiles and the investor, including the Jim and the Canos and the Davids, in Horn and the announced and that they were and the shootings electric car makers and Tesla the greetings and the concern about the companies and valuables and the profitabilities and Wirecard and in the 2020 and it was the revealed that the German payments and the processing companies and Wirecard and had been implementing and it's the revenues and the profits and for the years and short sellings and including the Kearsons and block and the muddy and water resources and had been the warning about the company accountings and the practices and for the sometimes and the profitated and when the stocks price and the eventualities and the collapse and the Lehman brothers in 2008 the Sabrals and the Hedge and funds and made large the short bids and against the investment and bank Lehman and brothers and which was the heavily and exposed to the subprimes and mortgage and market and when the Lehman and brothers and collapse at the field on for the bankruptcies and the short sellers and made the significant profits. Hindenburg and the research other short selling the research and film the release other resort reports and the occurrence the Adani groups and the India's multinationals and the conglomerates and of other variety of the fraudulent and the activities and including the overwhelmings and it's the assets and the evadings taxes and the shippings money in the off short tax havens and conclusion short selling is other controversial and the practices in the stock market and because it is the involved profitings and because from other declines in the price of other securities and such as the stock or other bond and despite and thus the concern and short selling and can also and play other valuable role in the market and by the promoting price and the discoveries and exposing the fund and the misconducts and providing and the liquidities and the ultimately and the value of the short sellings and the dependence on its the proper use and the regulations. Thank you guys, this session will be closed, next session 6th